Okay. Is it are are we on? Is it recording? Let's see. Hold on. Chat with everyone in studio. Once you're live, if your stream is public, you'll find it at the top of. Okay. Oh, wait. Why is that? Okay, so it does not look like Instagram is going to work. That's okay. Comments. All right, let's see what happened. I'm gonna open this and see if I'm like actually on
if we are live to tape.
Yeah, if we're on the Face Lady, if it's actually yes, live now.
Live.
Let's see what happens if I push play. Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. The lady, the Memo, bless her.
Ma's laughing at her own jokes again.
Fair.
Who let her have a second glass of wine?
Do what?
I'm just being smart. That's my. Who let her have a second glass of wine?
Well, no one knows what's in the basic white girl Stanley Cup. Listen.
True.
No, I have to drive to Greensboro, so this is water flavored with the all pink Starburst water.
Okay. All right.
Yes, there is a 10-year-old here in the house, so
of course.
Right. So I'm waiting just to see. I figure we wait a couple minutes, see if anybody joins us. If not, we'll just get started chatting. We'll just see how it goes. Does that sound good?
That sounds great.
Yes.
In the meantime, admire our artificial beauty.
I know.
Delicious tonight.
The Real Housewives of wherever.
Austin by way of Greensboro. Or what actual city do you like reside in?
So I live in Hickory, North Carolina, but it's really probably easier to tell people outside of the state of North Carolina, near Charlotte.
Got it. Okay.
You know, so oh my goodness. How's the weather in Austin right now?
It is it's hideous but beautiful. Like I personally love it. It's been thunder, lightning, rain. It's glorious to me because I'm like Utah is under like feet of snow right now. So to be splashing around in a wet tropical paradise compared to the snowy peaks of Utah, it's great. But today is exceptionally rainy and gloomy. So it's been like cuddle on the couch day, get the fire going, Golden Girls reruns, very, very cozy domestic.
And we live for that.
Yeah.
So now, which Golden Girl do you identify with?
Oh, God. I think I am a Dorothy trapped in a Blanche's body.
Huh?
On her best day, of course.
Of course. Yeah. And clearly, Dorothy. Just
clearly.
Yeah. Listen, she's a trucker in a wig, baby.
Ain't she?
And from the waist down, well, never mind. It's giving RuPaul's Drag Race from the waist down, like RuPaul.
Okay, behind the dais, giving critiques.
Indeed, sweatpants, etc.
Same.
And we live. Okay, well, I'm gonna just go ahead and let us just get into it, and we'll just chat. People may jump in, they may not, but it'll exist in perpetuity, and I may need to look at maybe a later time in the future. I don't know. We'll just kind of figure it out. So I was doing a little bit of research before. I knew this number, but I wanted to make sure I had this number correct. That 41% of the LGBTQIA community, or basically 41.3% of sexual minority adults ages 18 and older, reported past year substance use. And that number did not surprise me.
Just
But
use. We're just talking just use.
Just use. We're just talking substance use. So, of course, that would include marijuana, that would include alcohol, that would include, cocaine, all the things. Okay.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that number is that overall adult population, that number is only 18.7%. So we, as a community have, had a, and do still have a pretty significant challenge when it comes to substance use disorders. Now, what are your thoughts about how that comes to be, or what makes that the way that it is?
I think it's a perfect cocktail of a lot of different worlds, right? Like, I think that on the positive side, if you want to look at it that way, the gays like to party, right? We throw a fierce party. We're event planners. We're show producers. We know how to get down. On the darker side, however, I feel like there is, like, at least for speaking from personal experience, I think a lot of it becomes a coping mechanism. It becomes a crutch. It becomes a social necessity, like, especially for me, there was a chunk of time where I had a hard time even socializing without drugs or alcohol. So, I think that, those might be two, like, major driving forces, at least from where I'm standing, that, when you swirl it all together, what looks like just, a fun, night out might actually be a lot of different reasons, a lot of different agendas or struggles, or, self-medicating, or whatever you want to call it. So I think that, it's eye-opening that there's such a difference between, queer identified folks and our straight cisgender counterparts as far as, like, usage, but it doesn't surprise me in the least.
Well, it's interesting because obviously there's an age difference here. We won't say who's older. Do what?
Between us? I think we're closer than you think. This is just Noxzema and the love of a good man. I'm up to
it. Dr. Sizemore, fill it up. Well, I'm often younger than people think, and that's because fat don't crack.
Okay.
But I say that because, like, I came out in 1995. And so, like, my first nightclub experience was Scorpios in Charlotte. And that was a time period where it's still very much, like, to be openly gay was meant you were going to have a hard time finding work. It meant that, that life in general was going to be harder. You couldn't get legally married. None of the things that we enjoy now. And there was no such thing as Grindr. So, like, you pretty much had to go to the gay bar to meet gay people. And, from my vantage point or perspective, particularly now working in the field of mental health, I'm like, okay, so you take a population that's gaslit about their identity, traumatized by the community and often by family members. And then the one safe space that they can go to, boop, it's a bar. And guess what? There's drug dealers there too. So have at it, sis. Right. And I, to me, think, oh, well, no wonder, because the environment normalizes, substance use disorder, and not just substance use disorder, but substance use. It just completely normalizes it, that this is just what we do here. And then you add in what you were talking about, like with coping and everything. And I'm like, wow, that's a perfect storm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Seen it, lived it, breathed it, got the t-shirt, almost died from it. Yeah.
Wow.
Also, I think, the other layer is, you opened with it perfectly. You talked about bars are safe spaces. So I think, even to, at least for me, on some level, you may recognize you have a problem, but where am I going to go queerly exist? Where am I going to go and do drag comfortably? Where, you spend all this time, energy, and, emotional, you navigate yourself emotionally. It's like, just accept yourself and belong. And then you go out and find community. And then, you don't want to then have to suddenly give something up. It just becomes a balancing act for what's best for me physically, what's best for me socially, and oh my, I could go on and on, but I'm going to cut myself off before I derail.
Listen, you're all good. This is exactly why we're here. So, do you want to share a little bit about your personal journey to? Well, before I say that, um, I think it's probably good for people watching this to define what the idea of sobriety, addiction, all of that is. So I'm just gonna like put on my little hat for a second, my little therapist hat, addiction specialist hat. You know, addiction in general, and as I told you when we talked previously, I don't necessarily love using that term because there's 12 criteria for a substance use disorder, and it's mild, moderate, severe. And so like the treatment side of things sees it as a spectrum and understands that there's a difference between a recreational user and someone that really struggles. And from my vantage point, I've seen people struggle with addiction because of trauma to cope with it. I've seen them use it to self-medicate mental health challenges. And then the third category which is the category that's the most interesting and often the hardest to help, I think, is the compulsive user, where it looks a lot like OCD, where it's like if they open the bottle of wine, they will be in the bottom. If they like it's going to be all the way to 8 ball, and they're going to be in the bottom of the bag by the end of the night. Like that, it's very difficult. It's almost like there's a frontal lobe, something that's different. And I've seen it play out in people and then the person that has that particular challenge, they're in an environment with other people that can use recreationally. And it's like, well, I should be fine. So then you also get an issue with insight for all of them. So and then for me, so that's how I see addiction, is like those kind of categories. And I see it as a mental illness, and wherever you find it in that category, that's how you try to approach it. And then as far as sobriety, I see sobriety also as a spectrum, that you've got people that it's full abstinence, straight edge, absolutely nothing. And then you've got people that you introduced me to a new term, California sober. Yeah. People that use THC, but nothing else.
Right.
And then you have harm reduction, people that are on methadone so they can stop using opiates or, heroin, pain pills. Mm-hmm. People that vape so that they can not smoke cigarettes. Listen, and for me, I'm a fan of anything that improves the quality of your life and keeps you healthy. Sure. So anything that you would add to all of that from your experience?
I think you said it beautifully, but yeah, I think one of the biggest awakenings I had along my sober journey was realizing that I was allowed to define sobriety on my terms and what worked best for me. For a good chunk of time, when I knew by the time I established I had a problem, I had like flashes of facing it. I remember like one particular bender, for example. I think it was like this was at the end of a 2-day one, and I had decided to make the call. Put in the call to a treatment center. And so, you get a counselor on the phone, and I'm kind of touching on my situation a little bit. And I just felt it was what I received was just this really like militant, like, you have got a problem, you need to come here and check yourself in, you need to shut yourself off to the world for 30 days. And, that scared the shit out of me. I'm like, I had resigned myself to the fact that I needed some kind of solution to this problem, but that solution I knew was not going to work for me for a ton of reasons, right? Mm-hmm. So, and then it was really easy to give up on even attempting sobriety, because it's like, well, if I can't sign my life away for 30 days, I'll never get better, or I'm always going to have this problem. Instead, just being too reliant on those outside sources and voices to tell me what my story was going to be, instead of kind of allowing myself to find my own way. And so, yeah, I'm out and proud California sober, as you say, because that's what my version of sobriety looks like. For me, sobriety is no cocaine, no alcohol. And those were my two biggest vices. Of course, I never said no to a pill or whatever. You know, I was an equal opportunity user, but those were my two. Those were my two. My two main vices. And
Mm-hmm.
so for me, being clean and sober from alcohol and cocaine for the last, year and a half now, I will out and proud say I'm California sober for that long.
Well, and I love that. I love that. And honestly, what I hear when you say that about a treatment facility, it's so distressing because ultimately, when we think about, trying to help people, it should be about coming to where they are. And this is an issue that I've observed in the treatment community with, substance use disorders a lot of times, because you have so many people in the field that are that have their own sobriety or had their own journey with a substance use disorder. And for some of them, sometimes it feels like it's, well, the way I did it is the right way to do it, ergo that's how everyone else should do it,
Right.
versus, let's do an assessment and let's see what this assessment says based off your report. What is the biggest issue?
Right.
And, if you can, use something like THC and still go to work and function, that doesn't really meet the criteria of a severe substance use disorder. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's just, I hate that you had that experience, because it's, someone that's making their beliefs more important than your journey.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it was, and also, I didn't really know what I had so little exposure to sober people, sober living, that I didn't know any different, so of course that call was jarring and a little defeating, but it was so long ago that, I don't live in that. I don't sit in it, but certainly when you're in like active addiction, those things will like scare you away
Oh,
pretty quickly,
sure.
because it's just such a drastic life change, like it's like, what do you mean? What do you mean to tell me I can't just stop drinking and using Coke? I have to walk away from my job, my friends, my family for 30 days to have any a semblance of hope that this is gonna get better one day. So yeah, but in those early stages, it scared the shit out of me for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You mentioned something interesting that I would love for you to talk a little bit more about. Generally speaking, we as humans, we surround ourselves with people that validate our choices and decisions to help us feel good about them. And this is often why sobriety can be really difficult for people, because usually their support system is either using with them or financing that use, and so trying to get sober means changing relationships that you're in, or changing scenery, or changing jobs, because sometimes when people make a decision to get sober, the people that they were with that weren't take that kind of personally and almost want to challenge you about it, like, oh, just one, etc. So what was your experience like that as far as your support?
So I actually, the thing is, I've been very, I think, I don't want to say I have a tribe of yes people around me, but I've got a lot of very supportive, very loving people around me. And so I was kind of the figure where it's like, oh, if Gia wants it, we'll go party. And so it was just always a little too easy for me just to say, okay, well, let's make tonight a party night. And then I had, people around me that were like, yes, absolutely, let's do it. So I was when I first made the decision to go sober and come out with it and be public about it, I got so much support from pretty much everybody that I had been partying with all these years, and of course, like, the dynamics had to change and my behaviors and habits had to change. But when we were still living in Utah, it was a pretty accepting, concept. People were really accepting of it. Granted, of course, yes, my phone started to ring a lot less after I stopped partying, but I still had, friends in these people, and we could still engage out at a show or a gig and be just fine. So, you mentioned about having to change your scenery and all that. The fact that I've changed like jobs, moved out of state, and all this stuff over the last few months was actually just coincidental. But when I look at sobriety through the lens of everything we've done with moving to Texas and all of that, it certainly it has kind of brought on a renewed sense of peace with it. You know, I'm lucky to say that since I made the decision to get sober, I have not had a relapse, which is, I don't know the statistics on that, but I know that that's something to be celebrated. So I'm very proud that I've been able to stick with it. But being out here with no preconceived assumptions about what's going to go on if we go to the show. I mean, it's been a completely fresh start in every sense of the word. And so it's certainly reinvigorated and reignited my passion for sobriety, because if I can do it in, a community where I am known, then, the Gia that I give to Texas is my story to write. Right. So that's kind of the way I look at it. So I've been, even like for my husband, we've been together for 13 years. His story is his to tell, but if he's got any, he's supportive to a fault, where it'd be like we would have those times where it'd be like, we'd be like, I remember one time we had achieved a whole 30 days of sobriety, and we're like, oh, awesome. Let's, and then of course I was like, well, let's just go get one bag. And then, okay, so, he's such a gentleman. He's an amazing guy. He's the kindest person on the planet. He just wants to make me happy. I had to recognize that I was the one driving the constant, I'm like, well, I don't have money, but so anyway, like, I don't want to, get it derailed, but it's been great. I haven't, of course, I miss a few, moments in Utah, and I miss, my chosen family and all of that. But we're really, really happy that we did this move, because it feels like one of the biggest things we've done that's just for Ted and Scott, and it's beautiful. I of course I missed it, but I have not regretted moving for a single second.
That's amazing. No, and I love that, what you were sharing about your friends and your community, because you are very fortunate in that regard. And I wonder sometimes if that's a shift that's happening in the community at large, as far as sobriety is suddenly becoming cool. I've seen conversations about this, particularly, younger populations that, kind of approaching the conversation just in general as it being a decision someone makes prior to things getting really difficult or challenging. But, and I love that you guys are, enjoying Texas and, off to that, great start. But, and by the way, statistics as far as relapse, I don't have specific statistics, but I will tell you that we frequently, have the conversation with folks that relapse is a part of addiction, that it's a part of it. And so, yes, you should absolutely pat yourself on the back that has not been something that you have experienced.
Yeah.
It's so difficult. And I think what do you attest that to, that you have been able to avoid any kind of a relapse?
I think it starts and ends with personal accountability. I made this choice. I made this promise to myself, to my marriage, to, my husband, that I was going to do this. And I think I don't think about using every day, but I make it a point to think about my sobriety every single day. Just, yeah, and in those darkest moments, remembering that moment where it kind of flipped for me, like when it got really, really dark and I knew that I had to just go cold turkey or I was going to be in an early grave. I think, just keeping that internal dialogue reflective and positive, but also real and honest, has been one of the biggest things for me. So it's something that I never allow it to leave my mind. I'm always reminding myself, like, hey, it's a whole other day that you didn't drink or do 10 bags of Coke, or now it's another month. Like now I'm sitting at a year and a half. So it's just, it's daily. It's daily practice, daily internal conversation has been the big one. And then obviously having, a supportive husband who's on this sobriety journey with me, it makes it
Mhm.
a lot easier
Oh
than I
gosh,
think
I
if I
bet.
was trying to do that on my own. Like now, like we're to a point we get a buzz off of like a really good plate of Tex-Mex instead of the former. So that's been huge too.
Well, that is wonderful. Now I'm thinking about Chewies. That completely derailed my brain.
Okay, there's always like a 9-hour wait. We've never been able to like, well, we've been able to, but patience is something I've struggled with forever. And so if we like drive by and see a crowd, we'll just go elsewhere. But there's two little Tex-Mex joints that are Austin institutions right here in the neighborhood. So we average like, once a week at our local haunts. But oh God, I love to eat.
Oh god. Clearly, I'm right there with you. Listen, like legitimately, I have a petite Deborah issue. I really probably should investigate that. Um, but it really sounds like that. Not. I want to make sure that I'm hearing you, correctly. That really and truly, it's not taking your sobriety for granted. Not um not getting into a headspace of I got this, like I'm fine, it's not a big deal.
Right.
Like it sounds like it's something that you really think about and are intentional about on a regular basis.
I'm fine is a lie I told myself when I was using drugs. Now that I'm on the other side of it, reminding myself that I am flawed, I am not perfect, I am not fine all the time. Generally things are great, but shit happens. Life is hard and scary and expensive right now. There's so many triggers. Like we're swimming in a sea of triggers, and so I just find myself just much more hyper aware of the way I react to things internally,
Mhm.
even before like a fully realized thought comes into my head or before a word comes out of my mouth, like just being aware of stuff that you know could set me off.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I just think that that's valuable for other people to hear. What would you want to say to someone that's currently struggling and maybe thinking about making a different decision?
Oh my gosh, that's a big one. Trying to think what I would have wanted to hear. Um, I think I need to echo what I touched on earlier, and that you are allowed to find your own version of sobriety. You are allowed to establish your own timetable, um, and you are also allowed to not be ready. And you're, yeah. I mean, I wish I had a more of a more pageant Q&A, like start finish answer, but it's such a big question, and it's so another thing I learned is that every like just like recovery and sobriety looks different for everyone, so does addiction. And
Mm.
what might be a casual night out for one is the beginning of the end for another. And so don't yeah I guess if I could wrap it all up, don't let anyone box you into what their version of sobriety should be, and give yourself some grace to find what works best for you.
I think that's beautiful, and I think it's important and powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
My personal experience, it's been many years since I was, doing all the things. I fortunately, did not struggle with a compulsive pattern, but nonetheless, like I reflect back on it and I'm like, oh, that could have not gone well.
Right.
And so, you know, but because I've not struggled with that, I think it's important that I'm not offering up an opinion of what, like, this is the right way to do, even with my background, even with what I do. So I really appreciate you, pointing out and really highlighting it's okay for you to figure it out the way that works for you,
Right. Yeah.
you know? I'm very much team harm reduction, which for anyone that doesn't know what that is, it's literally trying to reduce the harm to a person or others. So that can look like all kinds of things, but it is not complete abstinence.
Right.
So very, very cool. Well, so what's next for Gia?
Oh, I don't. Let's see. Well, I am finally, now that the dust has settled on the move and everything, and Miss Gay America is over, I'm going to, on the drag and social side of things, it's time to get back out there and meet my brand new community. So we've got a couple pageants on the calendar that we're going to go attend and get dolled up and go support and cheer on the amazing contestants. I've got a couple gigs like coming up in April, but I'm kind of taking it slow and sweet, nice and steady to, find my place in the Austin community. There's there's a lot happening here already. There's so much talent, there's so much history and legacy, and it's that's kind of what's exciting is I get to find my own place in a brand new community. But this time I'm not starting from scratch, I'm starting from experience. So that's kind of what's coming up on the drag side. I can't help myself. I'm also a glutton for punishment, so I have officially registered for another pageant coming up in a few months. So we'll be making that announcement. Miss Gay America's got my heart forever. It's got me by the ovaries and the balls and everything else. So
girl, preach. I'm right there with you.
And we were talking earlier this week, it's like, yeah, things could have shaken out better for us. We mightn't have gotten exactly what we wanted on those score sheets, but my God, did we not have so much fun. And there was there's such an electricity and synergy that washes over pageant week when you've got these 43 incredible, passionate people there putting their hearts on stage. You got promoters, title holders. It's electric. It's magic. So
absolutely. And we would not have met each other if it were not for being involved with Miss Gay America.
Correct.
And which is so amazing to me. Like I would have never known what was it? The Salt Lake City Showgirl?
Formerly, yes.
Yeah. Now how are we going to make alliteration work? How do we make alliteration work for Austin?
So like the neighborhoods up here all have weird little names. The neighborhood that we're in is called Brushy Creek. So in the back of my mind, I'm putting the Brushy Creek beauty on the back burner, but no one's gonna go, what the fuck is Brushy Creek?
The Brushy Creek babe. The Brushy Creek
sounds like you might need to shave your between me down there, but that's
yeah.
So a couple of pageants, and then on the other side, we got this new house here, so we're just trying to fill this bitch up with furniture and beautiful, pretty things and stuff that's a testament to our story. And I started a job at the beginning of the year, so yeah, I mean, I'm kind of at the crest of a lot of fun, exciting things. And so, for example, like I'm going back. I thought I'd never say I'm going back into the retail circuit, but alas, I found an amazing opportunity that I could not pass up. I'm really excited to see what I'm going to be able to accomplish in my career as a sober individual, because I had a lot of success in the retail industry. God, I mean, I did it for 20 years before I went full-time drag. And so I'm really excited to kind of introduce this new sober version of Ted to my new employer and the new customers that we're about to meet out here. And I'm really looking forward to how sobriety is going to tie into all of these exciting things we have going on.
That's amazing. And it's funny, we were having like an ESPN moment, because the question that popped into my head was, how do you think being sober is going to affect, your professional life? Your like, can you reflect on that now and see where it could have gone versus where you feel like it's going?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like when I kind of look at like the last year and a half, there's been some really, really amazing milestones, and I can't attribute everything to sobriety. I think I want to add something to what I said earlier about if I could offer someone who's struggling a piece of advice. Sobriety is a tool. It's not a solution, at least for me. Right. I think when I first made it, I thought, okay, I'm going to get sober, then everything's going to fall into place. That's not the case. It makes it easier for you to check in and do the work yourself. But in those early months, I was kind of like, well, I'm sober now. Why isn't everything else getting, working itself out?
I'm going
You
to
know,
add to that. I want to
yeah,
add to that real quick that a lot of times it was really difficult when I would work with clients that they would get sober and then all of a sudden feeling the feelings that they had been medicating, thinking about the problems, worries, and anxieties that they'd been able to drown out, and that hadn't been on the radar. That it just let me just try to be sober and not have withdrawal, not have all the things, and then all of a sudden it's the plate of all the stuff that the substance use had enabled you to just ignore.
for sure. For sure. Yeah. Which can be scary and send a lot of folks right back to the vices. But I talked earlier about, the importance of reflection and healthy internal dialogue and stuff. So when I look back on all the cool things that I've been able to achieve over the last like year and a half, like this is stuff that has been on, like for my husband and I, it's been on our bucket list for a long time, but I wasn't in any capacity to really do anything about it because my focus was getting high and getting drugs. And so, when I think about, for example, capturing, like one of the biggest things that happened for me after getting sober was when I was winning Miss Gay New York America. I had actually competed at Western States earlier that year while I was still drinking and using, did not qualify for MGA, had a couple days of feeling about it. And then it wasn't soon after that I got sober completely. But comparing those pageant experiences back to back with under such a, stark contrast, one, I was drinking and using drugs. The other, I was completely sober, but new at it. So winning Miss Gay New York America was huge for me because if you're, for the folks that are unfamiliar with the system, it's not an easy crown to win. I mean, all pageantry is always hard, right? But there's a handful of those prelims that are like that I was always drawn to because they were a challenge. So when I decided to throw my wig in the ring from New York, I was like, God, if I can tell myself how great I am all day long, but let's see what the Big Apple thinks, So getting out there and having such a monumental win that still fills me with pride and joy to this day. It's reflecting on those things that I have been able to accomplish since I made that huge shift in my life, and that it just makes it a lot easier to stay the course.
I love that, and I love that you have those chapters bookended, with pageantry. A lot of people don't understand, what it is that we love about pageantry, why we do it. For me, I really resonate with what you were saying about a challenge. That's how I felt about Miss Southern, is that, it had been so long since I'd been in the game. As a former Miss North Carolina, which was really hard to win,
right?
Particularly at the time that I won, which was in 2003. But, I wanted that challenge. And, but when I think about the personal growth, the reflection, the skills, like with interview, and learn and putting things together and trying to market and just all the things that come along with it, to me it really contributes to why we love it.
I mean, I think there's reasons to better yourself all around you. Some people need those to kind of get up and get motivated, some do not, right? But
Right.
I don't know exactly where I fall, but I do know that when I get a taste of something good, maybe it's the addiction kicking back in, but it's like, well, I want more of that. I want more of this good feeling, So how can I find more of these little wins, in as this new version of myself, if that's even fair to say. So, yeah,
Sure. I mean, and listen, those feel good brain chemicals, they're there for a reason.
yeah,
And, and I always, again, I always come back to, is it helping or harming? And so if what you're doing is harming you or others, then yeah, that's maybe not a good thing. But if it's helping, like all the things that we were just talking about where pageantry was concerned, drag pageantry in particular, and Miss Gay America in particular, it's such a established brand here, in the US. And there's so many people that have a relationship with it and to it throughout all of, the art form of drag.
Yeah.
That, how cool is it to have these opportunities? I almost kind of think about it like this. Well, Susie Wong had said this too. She's like, this is my golf. I have friends that spend crazy money to play golf. This is my golf. I'm like, like, yes, and like, I kind of get it.
Yeah. 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 100%. So yeah, if it's your relationship, your career, a pageant, if there's something in front of you that is the motivating factor behind you making some life improvements, girl, go for it. Like
Absolutely.
whatever you need to get you there, right?
Right. And of course, and again, just like we're talking about, it's different for everybody.
Yeah.
It's not always going to look the same for every person, just like sobriety won't look the same for every person, because addiction doesn't look the same for every person.
Right.
So, well, Gia, I really appreciate you taking time to talk with me about all of this today. I feel confident people will come back and find this video to watch and, comment, share, etc. But I just really appreciate you taking the time to share your story and your experiences.
Absolutely. It's been a delight. I'm so glad that the universe brought us together. And, the sobriety journey is something that is, still a little bit new to me. I'm only a year and a half in, but, I think, there seems to be more conversations about this topic, and I'm grateful, to you for the opportunity to share that, because that's one thing that I didn't see when I was at my worst. Was there was nobody in my drag queer immediate orbit that was advocating for this, or speaking about it, or even entertaining it. And so, it's that title phrase, be the change you want to see. So I think, if someone can find some comfort or a glimmer of hope in me putting all this shit on and talking about
then because what I think about when I was partying really hard in my 20s is that there was a very distinct feeling of an expectation that this is what comes along with being in the group, being with everybody. And so there was sort of a feeling that you would be ostracized if you did not. And so thinking about somebody being vocally a sober advocate in that environment is like,
right.
So I'm so grateful for you, proud of you, honored to get to chat with you and share your story with other people, because I think that it's a powerful thing for someone to be in the position to say, everybody else might be doing this or might say XYZ, but no, that's not true, or no, that's not for me.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be for you either. And you can still do and be wonderful, beautiful you on your own terms.
Right. Amen. Yeah. And the occasional message that I get on social media from, a queer person who's just discovering sobriety, or, it's something that people, I think with me being so candid and honest about it, it gives people a safe space to share their story with me, even if it's just in private, something that, I will never show anybody else or whatever. But those messages always, that's another reminder for me that, I'm doing the right thing. I'm on the right path. And, it's okay to be that hero for someone that you never had, whether you know them or not, because they're everywhere.
Right. Be who you needed when you were younger.
Yes.
And I think too, like when it doesn't seem like that there is a visible light post in a storm, being able to be that, I don't even know that you will ever really know the breadth of that impact of being an advocate based off your experiences. But I just think it's amazing what you're doing and who you are.
Thank you, baby. Thank you.
You bet. All right. I am going